Have you ever been so invisible your own family forgot you existed? I was standing in my Arizona State graduation gown, diploma heavy in my hands. My parents, Mark and Sarah, were clapping the loudest. All night at this expensive Scottsdale restaurant, they couldn't stop beaming at me. I almost believed it. And then they brought out the champagne. We have an announcement. Mom beamed. I figured it was for me. It was my night. I was wrong. We are just so proud of our Chloe, Dad said, raising his glass to my little sister, the popular influencer. Her brand is just exploding, so we decided we bought her a new luxury condo downtown, the table gasped. Chloe was squealing, filming the whole thing for her phone. An investment in her future, Mom added. Then they turned to me. The smiles got a little tighter. Mom handed me a small gift bag. Inside was a cheap picture frame, and in it, a printout of an entry-level assistant job application. Congratulations, sweetie, Dad said, patting my hand. Time to start pulling your weight. I looked at them, my screaming sister, my proud parents, and something inside me just snapped. I gave them a cold, calm smile. Thanks, but I won't be needing this. By the way, my lawyer will be contacting you tomorrow. You have 30 days to vacate Aunt Eleanor's house. You see, there were two kinds of love in our family. The kind you got for free, and the kind you had to earn every single day. Guess which one was mine? My sister Chloe was the golden child from the second she could walk. She was bubbly, she was charming, and she knew how to work a smile to her advantage. Our parents, Mark and Sarah, poured everything into her. When she announced at 16 that she wanted to be an influencer, they didn't blink. They paid for professional photo shoots, designer clothes she'd wear once for a post, and trips to LA so she could network. She's got it, Mom would say, scrolling through the likes on Chloe's latest bikini picture. You've got to bet on it. And me, I was the practical one, the reliable one, the self-sufficient one. Those were all just code words for the one we don't need to pay attention to. While Chloe was building her brand, I was in the library, working a coffee shop job to pay my bills. When I got a full scholarship for my freshman year, my dad said, "Great, that's one less thing to worry about." He never even asked what my major was. But I had a secret I'd kept for 4 years. Her name was Aunt Eleanor. Eleanor was my dad's great aunt, a tough, razor-sharp woman my family had written off years ago. Why? Because she'd once told my father he was spineless, for letting my mother treat me like the hired help. My parents hadn't spoken to her in 15 years. They just assumed she was a cranky old woman living out her days in a house they believed was tied up in some vague family trust, just waiting for them to inherit. I started visiting her when I was 18, first out of a sense of duty, and then out of genuine love. I'd bring her groceries. I'd sit for hours listening to her stories about what Scottsdale used to be. I took over her finances when her hands got too shaky, moving all her bills online and setting up her auto pay. I held her hand in the hospital when she had pneumonia and no one else even knew she was sick. I never asked her for a dime. I did it because she was the only person in my life who saw me. One afternoon during my sophomore year, she was looking over my grades. "You're working 30 hours a week on top of this, Maya," she said. "You're going to burn out." I told her I didn't have a choice. My scholarship didn't cover everything. "Nonsense," she snapped. "There's always a choice." The next week, she had me drive her to her lawyer's office. I waited in the lobby. When she came out, she handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for the rest of my tuition and a note. "You invest in things with actual value, not just things that glitter. Focus on your studies, child." She passed away last Tuesday, a week before my graduation. Quietly, in her sleep. I was the only one there. My parents never knew. They're too busy planning Chloe's trip to Coachella. They had no idea that Eleanor, my secret ally, my real mentor, had called her lawyer 2 years ago and changed everything. That family trust they were banking on, she dissolved it. The Scottsdale house they were living in, the one they just assumed was their birthright, she left it to me. Every last brick. So, let's go back to that restaurant. It was one of those Scottsdale places that smells like garlic, rosemary, and old money. The walls were dark wood, and the lights were kept dim, just enough to make everyone look richer than they were. My parents were glowing. After the condo announcement, the waiter rushed over to top off their glasses. Chloe just had a massive engagement spike this week, Mom said, addressing the whole table, but really addressing an imaginary audience. Her blog is a real business now. You should see the brands that are reaching out to her. Absolutely, Dad chimed in, leaning back in his chair. She needs a professional environment, a place to take meetings, to shoot high-quality content. This condo, he stressed the word, it isn't just a gift, it's a necessary business expense. Chloe, sitting across from me, was preening. Dad's right, she chirped, filming him for her vlog. You can't build an empire from your childhood bedroom. An empire. She called her bikini selfies an empire. I just silently pushed a piece of salmon around my plate. I was waiting. I knew this part was coming. In our family, the scales always had to be balanced. A huge triumph for Chloe meant a small, pathetic gesture for Maya. Right on cue, all eyes turned to me. The table went quiet. Maya, sweetie, we know you've been working incredibly hard too, Mom said. Her smile got a little thinner, a little more practiced. And we know how worried you've been about finding a job after college. I wasn't. I was in the final interview rounds with 3 of the top accounting firms in the country. But I hadn't told them. They'd never asked. So, we helped you out, she announced, her voice full of that fake bright cheer. She slid a small papyrus brand gift bag across the table. Inside, wrapped in crinkly tissue paper, was a cheap, dark wood frame. You could get at any Target. But that wasn't the gift. The gift was the piece of paper inside the frame. It's a great position, Dad said, leaning forward. Administrative assistant at Johnson & Cole. It's only a 40-minute drive from the house. Stable job, benefits. We even talked to the hiring manager. He's a big fan of Chloe's blog, actually, so he's expecting your call on Monday. I stared at the printout from Indeed.com. Administrative assistant, minimum wage. They were waiting. They genuinely expected me to burst into tears of gratitude, to thank them for planning my practical life just as carefully as they planned Chloe's brilliant one. They bought her a condo. They got me a job application. Chloe was still filming, lens pointed right at me, a smirk frozen on her face. She was waiting for the content, waiting for the grateful older sister to react to their generosity. In that moment, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sad. I just felt this cold, ringing clarity. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a utility. Chloe was their high-risk, high-reward investment. I was their insurance policy, their stable daughter with the reliable job who would be there to pay their bills when they got old. I slowly looked up from the frame, at my mother, waiting for praise, at my father, already reaching for his wine, at my sister, waiting for me to be humiliated. You know, the funny thing about being used your whole life, you get used to it. You even start to expect it. But the second you stop letting them, the second you finally say no, they look at you like you're the one who betrayed them. And that's when I decided to pull the trigger. The venom in the room was so thick you could taste it. My mother blinked, her frozen smile faltering. Maya, don't be ridiculous, she said, her laugh coming out high and nervous. You must be overtired. Some kind of weird graduation joke. My father, Mark, snorted and took a sip of his wine. A lawyer? Don't be melodramatic, sweetie. What are you even talking about? Aunt Eleanor's house is in the family trust. It's always been in the trust. I looked him dead in the eye. All the noise in the restaurant seemed to fade away. It was just our table, frozen in time. No, Dad, it's not, I said, my voice so even and calm it scared even me. The trust is gone. Aunt Eleanor dissolved it 2 years ago, right after you forgot her birthday for the third year in a row. My father's face went rigid. What the? I didn't let him finish. Aunt Eleanor died last Tuesday, I continued. While you guys were too busy booking Chloe's Coachella tickets, I was arranging her funeral. She passed peacefully in her house. The house you're currently living in, by the way. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. She's dead? Yes. And as for who owns that house, I paused, savoring it. She left it to me. I am the sole executor and the only beneficiary of her will. The house you live in, all the furniture, all the accounts, they're mine now. I let that hang in the air. I watched the blood drain from my mother's face. I watched my father grip his fork so hard his knuckles turned white. But it was Chloe's reaction that said it all. Her eyes went wide with pure terror, her phone clattering onto the table. What? She hissed, her voice dropping from fake bubbly to a panicked shriek. But my condo! You were supposed to get the loan. You were supposed to use the house to get the loan. Oh, there it was. I turned to my parents with fake sympathy. A home equity loan? What a terrible idea, especially since you'd be borrowing against a property you don't own. I believe that's called fraud. My father shot to his feet, his chair scraping loudly on the floor. You, he roared. A few tables nearby turned to look. You're lying. You manipulated an old woman. I manipulated her? I laughed, a cold, sharp sound. Dad, I've been driving her to her doctor's appointments for 4 years. I've been paying her bills. I held her hand when she had pneumonia while you couldn't be bothered to even call her. She knew exactly what she was doing. I stood up slowly, folded my napkin neatly, and placed it on my untouched salmon. Like I said, you have 30 days to vacate. I'm putting the house on the market on the 1st of next month. I looked at Chloe, her face pale and twisted with rage and fear. I hope that new luxury condo has a sleeper self-assist. Looks like Mom and Dad are going to need a place to crash. I turned and walked. I didn't run. I walked. Past the stunned diners, past the whispering waitstaff, and away from my family, who looked like they had just been struck by lightning. As I reached the door, my father screamed my name. Maya! Maya, get back here! You can't do this to us! I stopped, but I didn't turn around. I just did. Talk to my lawyer. I stepped out into the warm Scottsdale night, and for the first time in my entire life, I could finally breathe. I went back to my tiny apartment near campus. It didn't have marble countertops or a rooftop pool like the one they promised Chloe, but it was mine, paid for by my 2 jobs, earned by my sleepless nights. That night, for the first time in 4 years, I slept for 8 solid hours. The calm lasted exactly 18 hours. The first explosion wasn't a phone call. It was a text from Chloe at 10 a.m. 5 words. You need to call Dad, now. It was followed by a second one. The bank denied the loan. What did you do? I put my phone down and kept drinking my coffee. Of course the bank denied the loan. I could picture the scene perfectly. My father, Mark, in his best and only suit, walking into the loan officer's office with all his usual entitlement. He demands his home equity loan, the one he believes is his birthright. And the loan officer, after a calm look at his monitor, says, I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, but according to the title records filed last Tuesday, you are not the owner of this property. You are just living there. The humiliation must have been searing. But that was just the beginning. See, the luxury condo announcement at dinner wasn't just family news. It was a public declaration. Chloe had already posted it all over her social media, tagging the developer and the realtor, posing with keys they'd let her hold for a 10-minute photo shoot. But the condo wasn't bought, it was reserved. My parents had put down a small, refundable deposit, fully banking on the equity loan from Aunt Eleanor's house to cover the down payment. When the loan was denied, the deal collapsed. By noon that day, the realtor, realizing his commission had just evaporated, started calling my parents, demanding payment for his services and the kill fee for the contract. Chloe's victory post was still up, and the comments were rolling in. When's the housewarming? Can't wait for the decorating vlog. The public humiliation was happening in real time. And then, the real reason for their panic came out. It turned out Chloe's brand wasn't built on success. It was built on a mountain of credit card debt, all those business essential trips to Miami, those designer bags, those endless networking brunches. All of it was charged to cards my father had co-signed and given to her. They were nearly $50,000 in the hole. They weren't just buying her a condo, they were trying to bail her out. The home equity loan was supposed to be their magic bullet, pay off Chloe's debt, and cover the down payment in one go. And I, with my one quiet no, had just blown up their entire financial house of cards. That's when the calls started. My father was first. His voice wasn't loud. It was worse. It was low, oily, and full of venom. "I don't know what game you're playing, Maya," he hissed, "but you are going to end it. Now." "It's not a game, Dad," I said calmly. "It's called executing a will. You can't throw us out of our home," he finally roared. "We are your family. You owe us. You owe us for everything we've given you. Owe them for feeding and clothing me, for giving me a place to sleep." Isn't went back to my tiny apartment near campus. It didn't have marble countertops or a rooftop pool like the one they promised Chloe, but it was mine, paid for by my 2 jobs, earned by my sleepless nights. That night, for the first time in 4 years, I slept for 8 solid hours. The calm lasted exactly 18 hours. The first explosion wasn't a phone call. It was a text from Chloe at 10 a.m. 5 words. "You need to call Dad. Now." It was followed by a second one. "The bank denied the loan. What did you do?" I put my phone down and kept drinking my coffee. Of course the bank denied the loan. I could picture the scene perfectly. My father, Mark, in his best and only suit, walking into the loan officer's office with all his usual entitlement. He demands his home equity loan, the one he believes is his birthright. And the loan officer, after a calm look at his monitor, says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, but according to the title records filed last Tuesday, you are not the owner of this property. You are just living there." The humiliation must have been searing, but that was just the beginning. See, the luxury condo announcement at dinner wasn't just family news. It was a public declaration. Chloe had already posted it all over her social media, tagging the developer and the realtor, posing with keys they'd let her hold for a 10-minute photo shoot. But the condo wasn't bought, it was reserved. My parents had put down a small, refundable deposit, fully banking on the equity loan from Aunt Eleanor's house to cover the down payment. When the loan was denied, the deal collapsed. By noon that day, the realtor, realizing his commission had just evaporated, started calling my parents demanding payment for his services and the kill fee for the contract. Chloe's victory post was still up, and the comments were rolling in. "When's the housewarming? Can't wait for the decorating vlog." The public humiliation was happening in real time. And then the real reason for their panic came out. It turned out Chloe's brand wasn't built on success. It was built on a mountain of credit card debt, all those business essential trips to Miami, those designer bags, those endless networking brunches. All of it was charged to cards my father had co-signed and given to her. They were nearly $50,000 in the hole. They weren't just buying her a condo. They were trying to bail her out. The home equity loan was supposed to be their magic bullet. Pay off Chloe's debt and cover the down payment in one go. And I, with my one quiet no, had just blown up their entire financial house of cards. That's when the calls started. My father was first. His voice wasn't loud. It was worse. It was low, oily, and full of venom. "I don't know what game you're playing, Maya," he hissed, "but you are going to end it. Now." "It's not a game, Dad," I said calmly. "It's called executing a will. You can't throw us out of our home," he finally roared. "We are your family. You owe us. You owe us for everything we've given you. Owe them for feeding and clothing me, for giving me a place to sleep. Isn't that just being a parent?" I said nothing, and that's when he put my mother on the phone. The theatrics began. "Maya, how could you?" she wailed. "Chloe, she's locked herself in her room. She's hysterical. You are ruining her life. You are ruining this family. After everything we've done for you, you're just ungrateful. Ungrateful." There it was. The word they always saved for when I stopped being convenient and started being a person. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I said. "You have 29 days. I hung up. The storm I had been waiting for had finally, well and truly, broken. 2 days of silence passed. 2 days filled with nothing but the hum of my old refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on the freeway. I knew it was the calm before the storm. They didn't call again. They were preparing. They showed up on Saturday night. I was unpacking boxes of textbooks when the pound came at my door. Not a knock, a pound. 3 fast, furious hits that rattled the fin door in its frame. I looked through the peephole. There they were, all 3 of them. My father, Mark, his face beet red, a vein pulsing in his forehead. My mother, Sarah, her makeup streaked with tears, but her eyes burning with a rage that wasn't grief. And Chloe, hiding behind them, arms crossed, her face pale and mean. I took a deep breath, unlocked the deadbolt, and opened the door, leaving the security chain latched. "What do you want? What do we want?" my father roared, shoving the door, only to be stopped by the chain. "You know what we want, Maya. Open this damn door." "I'm not doing that until you stop yelling," I said. "Walk from there. You little thief," my mother hissed, pushing her way forward. "You manipulated a helpless old woman. You stole our inheritance." "It wasn't your inheritance," I said flatly. "You hadn't spoken to her in 15 years. "We are contesting the will," my father shouted. "I've already spoken to our lawyer. We have a case. He said this is classic undue influence. You took advantage of her." I almost laughed. Undue influence? Dad, I was the only one bringing her groceries. That's not undue influence. That's called being a decent person. Then Chloe stepped up, her voice trembling with a barely controlled rage. "You made me lose the condo," she shrieked. "You put me in debt. You are ruining my life." "You were just jealous." "Jealous?" I asked. "Chloe, you were spending money you didn't have on a life you didn't earn." "I didn't do this. You did." That disarmed them. They weren't expecting calm. They wanted tears. They wanted me to scream back. They wanted a fight they could win. So, my mother switched tactics. The real tears started, the pathetic, pleading ones. Maya, honey, please, she sobbed, reaching her hand through the gap. You see what this is doing? Your father. He's a wreck. This stress is killing him. And your sister, she's going to be homeless. How can you sleep at night knowing you're doing this to your own family? I'm sleeping fine, Mom, I said, my voice ice. For the first time in a long time, you did this to yourselves. You bet everything on the golden child and you lost. That was a gut punch. They all went silent, just staring at me with a fresh wave of hatred. Finally, my father made one last, desperate attempt. He pushed Mom and Chloe aside. His face changed. He tried to smile. It was hideous. Maya, sweetheart. Listen, he said, in a voice he must have thought was soothing. We all got a little heated. Okay, we're family. We always knew you were the smart one, the responsible one. That's your strength. He paused. Let's talk. Like adults, we can figure this out. Maybe we split the house, 50-50. No, 60-40, your favor. We can make a deal. We're family. The swing from threats to pleading to fake love bombing was so predictable. They were mashing every button that had always worked before. I just watched them. Their desperation. Their ugly, selfish panic. Are you finished? I asked quietly. They stared. Because I was waiting for this, I said, as I unlatched the chain and swung the door open. I have something for you. They walked into my apartment, and for a second, I saw a flash of triumph on their faces. They thought their little guilt trips had worked. They thought I'd caved. They thought practical Maya was ready to make a deal to keep the peace. My father even scanned my small living room with this ugly, contemptuous smirk, like he was thinking, of course you want to cut. Look at this dump. I didn't argue. I didn't negotiate. I didn't say a word. I just walked over to my desk, woke up my laptop, and turned the screen to face them. What's this? Dad snapped. Another one of your stupid spreadsheets? In a way, I said, and I pressed play. Aunt Eleanor's face filled the screen. She wasn't in a hospital bed. She was sitting at her favorite oak desk. She was wearing her best turquoise jacket. Her gray hair was perfectly styled, and her eyes were clear as ice. A man in a suit, her lawyer, sat beside her, nodding at the camera. This is a notarized addendum to my will, Eleanor said, her voice strong, not a trace of doubt in it. Recorded on April 14th, in the presence of my attorney, Mr. Chang. I watched my mother grab my father's arm. Eleanor looked right into the lens, as if she could see them right through time. Mark, she said, addressing my father, I am leaving you exactly $1 for not calling me for 15 years while you lived in my house rent-free. I hope you spend it more wisely than you've spent your life chasing your wife's approval. My father's face went ashen, Sarah, Eleanor continued, her gaze hardening. I am leaving you $1 too, for sending me a get-well-soon card signed Mark and the family when I was in the ICU with pneumonia but being too busy to visit. You were always too busy, Chloe, Aunt Eleanor said, and my sister flinched at her name. I leave you nothing. Except one piece of advice. Beauty isn't currency, and likes on the internet are no substitute for self-worth. You should try getting a job. Chloe's face twisted, like she'd been slapped, and finally, Eleanor said, and her entire face softened. Everything else, the house in Scottsdale, the stocks I bought in 1983, all of my savings accounts, I am leaving it all to Maya Harrison, undivided and absolute. She looked right into the camera again. I'm not doing this because she's my grandniece. I'm doing this because she was a daughter to me when my own family had forgotten I existed. She read to me, she held my hand, and she managed my finances with an honesty and integrity you, Mark, have never known. She didn't steal a thing. She earned it all. The video ended. The silence in the room was deafening. My father looked like he'd been punched. My mother was opening and closing her mouth, making no sound. Chloe was just staring at the blank screen, completely vacant. I let them sit in it for a second. So, I said, closing the laptop, as for your deal, I'm afraid I have to decline. I walked to the door and held it open. The 30-day eviction notice still stands. You'll be served on Monday morning. However, I said, and they all looked up, a wild, desperate flash of hope in their eyes. I understand the Scottsdale rental market is tough, so I'm willing to rent the house to you. My mother's face started to crumple in relief. For full market value, I added, rent is $4,200 a month, plus security deposit due on the 1st. Don't be late. The hope vanished. Their faces were just pure, unfiltered poison. You're a monster, the listener I love, and no one will come to see me. Sounds like he missed a pretty big piece of evidence. I ushered them out of my apartment and closed the door, for good this time. I leaned against it, and a long, shaky breath I'd been holding for 20 years finally came out. I looked out the window. I'd lost the family I thought I was supposed to save, but I'd finally found myself.